Hello, this is Fear Dragon coming at you with another StarCraft 2 netcast. Today we have a Protoss versus Zerg in the finals of the Late Night Quickie number 2. This is going to be game number 2, so please go watch game number 1 if you haven't, so that I will not spoil the results to you. And the results were, Bennay actually ended up winning the first game, but before I even go ahead announcing the player names, what am I doing? Let's go ahead and introduce the players. Down here in the bottom left-hand corner, spawning as the red Zerg. He's currently down 1 game to his opponent. He needs to win a couple more games. He has 1 more game to afford to lose before he will be knocked out and go to 2nd place. His name is Valon. And his opponent, spawning in the top right-hand corner of Daybreak, we have the Protoss player in the blue trunks. Actually went for a really cool Warp Prism drop with some sentries loaded in and got his opponent to immediately GG out of the game. He's up 1-0. Can he take the remaining 2 games without any issues? His name is Bennay. Now, I kind of mentioned this before, but Bennay got that last game very easily. And, you know, that's not gotta be a very rough situation for Valon. He kind of ended up throwing that game away quite easily just because in the last game, he had 4 units lost, a total of 4 units lost. It was well into, like, you know, the point where, you know, Valon already had 3 bases up. He wasn't fully mining from them, for sure, but I mean, he was in a fairly good position. He was getting some roaches out. He had a bunch of units popping out. And he, as soon as the sentries got the force field down on the ramp, he immediately GG'd and just left. So it's a very questionable decision. But we are into game number 2. Potentially what I will defend Valon in just a little bit and say, you know, sometimes it's just better to just jump into the next game and not let yourself dwell too much in a game that you think you're just going to lose, like you don't feel like you have much of a chance of winning, just because otherwise you're going to let it get to you, you're going to let it get to your head, and you could end up just making a lot of more mistakes in those next games where you need to win. So Valon might just be kind of defending himself and saying, hey, I know my personality and this is the way that I play best. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt and say this is game number 2. Valon is going to try and go to this game unfazed. Even said he's going to try and play this game a little bit better than he felt he played the last one. And hopefully we'll be seeing a good showing from him. Looks like he actually gets that probe before he gets a chance to even throw down that proxy pylon to block the hatchery. So Valon's going to be able to get that a little bit uncontested. Meanwhile, though, Bennay has already thrown down that Nexus, and definitely going to be a Nexus before the cannon or the gateway. So Bennay playing a little bit more greedy this game than the last game. We're going to have to see if Valon decides to punish him, as he did end up waiting until those 6 Zerglings were out before really even trying to grab his natural expansion, much less his 3rd expansion. But his 3rd expansion was a little bit earlier than the last game, so even he playing a little bit greedier just because he knows he knocked out that probe a little bit earlier. Doesn't have to worry nearly as much about it, but I was actually commenting on this in the last game as well. But this fabulous rallying around, just attack moving and checking around to see where could that pesky probe be. I need to find it. I need to get rid of it because I hate probes. Zerglings hate probes with all of their guts. Like, I've never seen a Zergling be friendly to a probe. Even in 2v2s, like, I'll end up spawning as a Zerg player and I just decide, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and attack my opponent, like my ally. Like, I don't even care, man. It's just like this natural instinct when you roll Zerg. You hate probes. They're like the worst worker in the game for you. But it looks like, unfortunately for Valon, but maybe actually fortunately for him, he's not going to find any probes because there are no probes out on the map from Bennay. Even this probe throwing down that pylon and just going to go ahead and go back to mining. He does not want to lose any probes after having lost that initial probe to those initial 6 Zerglings. So the Zerglings are going to be in a bit of a futile effort trying to find that probe, but they're definitely going to be pretty happy to see that there are no, at least visible probes on the map, and that there are no proxy pylons in those locations he's checking. So definitely going to be a nice little win for Valon in that sense. But in the meanwhile, it looks like Valon just going to go ahead and get that second base, that natural expansion, up in mining. Already has that third queen out, getting that, I guess, second queen going to his third. And will have enough energy for a Lara Vomit eventually. But in the meanwhile, has all three of his queens up, has that Roach Horn going down. He's going to be feeling to be in a really nice situation. And you might be wondering, like, why get the Roach Horn right now? Well, the Roach Warren is just kind of nice, as there are a lot of kind of pressure builds that Protoss players have been developing that kind of can come around, you know, some light pressure around 8 minutes, and especially that big pressure that can come out around 9 to 11, maybe 12 minutes. Around that timing, you see this wide range of Protoss pressure plays that they'll generally do on those two bases, and especially from Bennay, we have been seeing quite a few of those. So we'll end up seeing what Bennay ends up doing. Looks like we're going to be seeing that 6-gate Blink Stalker aggression that he seems to have loved in his previous games. 5-gate Blink Stalker aggression that he seems to love, but although not quite as much in his previous games, with that cancel over there on that one gateway. Nice timing over there, of course. A really curious decision. Looks like he's actually even getting a second Gas Geyser. To my experience as a Protoss player, generally you can actually support this just on one Gas Geyser, although it does eventually, you do eventually run low on gas and cannot support the additional wave warpins, but it allows you to get up your third expansion a little bit quicker once that aggression starts to kick in. You'll have those additional minerals from those 3 probes, mining minerals, as well as that extra 75 mineral save. So we'll end up seeing if that actually comes into play. For now, though, it looks like he's going to be hitting that +2 timing, a very common thing to be doing as a Protoss player, but he is a little bit supply blocked, just now getting on supply block. Hopefully he does not get very supply blocked during the push. But actually, no, we do see a robotic facility actually just finishing up at this point in time, so he might be not doing as big of a pressure build as you might be thinking. Just getting that Blink Stalkers for probably some light aggression, I would have to imagine, as a Protoss player in this situation, especially if you have not taken your third expansion, or at least started to move out to try and take your third expansion around now to maybe a minute or two in the future. It can be very difficult. This very weird thing happens for a Protoss player against a Zerg player, where you have this window of opportunity to take a third either very, very early, or it has to be very, very late. And if you try and take it anywhere in between, you just get overwhelmed because you didn't have that economic advantage of having that third to really pay off for the massive number of units you would need to defend it around the time that the Zerg would be able to really put on a lot of aggression. So it's a very weird situation, but it looks like for now, Bennay is likely going to have to try and do some kind of damage. Might be waiting to get out just a couple of Immortals, and there looks like is going to be in the move out. Probably will move out once that second Immortal pops, but we do see the Overseer coming in. He does see that Twilight Council. He also sees 4 of the gateways, and of course should know about that 5th gateway over at the front, so he should be expecting all of this kind of aggression. Even see the robotic facility and that Immortal, so definitely a nice scout off from Valon. He's definitely going to be able to try and prepare appropriately at this point in time. He does have the +1/+1 on the way, as well as Burrow, and I think that +1/+1 should be close to at least finishing up by the time that this push is looking to be moving out. And it looks like, no, Bennay actually going to be going for that third expansion now. I have to say this is kind of edging on the later side of when you should be taking this expansion, but we're going to have to wait and see if Valon does even decide to take advantage of that and try and put on a little bit of pressure. Now, he does have his lair tech, so he is going to be getting that infestation pit. He already has it down, actually, and the pathogen glands researching, so I think that if Bennay does decide to attack at this point in time, the Zerg player will be very much prepared, as having those infestors out, especially with those pathogen glands, he will be able to easily deflect a lot of this aggression, especially since with that, the pathogen glands on those infestors, you can do those fungal growths down on the stalkers and basically lock them down without being able to allow them to blink back. So that kind of nullifies a lot of what that investment that Bennay invested or put down into getting that Twilight Council. Of course, he did get the +2 weapons upgrade, but still a bit of a rough situation. Now, we do see a very large army from Valon kind of massing out over by his front base. And, I think that actually Bennay might not be in too bad of a position trying to take this third, as long as he can try and defend against this big push. And it looks like here's the massive number of Zerglings making their way across the map. The Roach is just going to go ahead and chill at home just in case. It looks like for defensive purposes. But these Zerglings are definitely going to be able to do some decent damage, at least trying to get a cancel off on a couple of these buildings. No, it looks like all of the Zerglings attacking that one pylon, and the pylon just says, well, I can just cancel myself. It's kind of okay. There are 2 other pylons here and 3 additional gateways. I mean, if you really want to cancel me, I'll cancel, but really not working out too well for Valon. And at this point in time, I feel like he's actually just kind of done a bit of a wasted investment in all these Zerglings. Sure, he's a little bit ahead in that worker counting station, but still he invested quite heavily in getting this huge Zergling army out and this huge Roach army out, rather than spending some of that additional gas on additional infestors, spending that additional larva on additional drones. He could have actually been up to 80, maybe like 85 drones by now, but instead decided to go for that huge Zergling count. And I have to wonder if it was going to be worth it. We'll end up seeing as Bennay is going to be securing a very nice position, especially with this nice gateway wall off to defend this third. But meanwhile, it looks like Valon going to be going ahead and getting up that fourth. That fourth does now complete, and fourth's very important for getting up the enough gas to start producing those brood lords and going for that hive tech. It looks like the lair tech is only the thing that's out right now, but he does have the infestation pay. He can start researching that hive whenever the hell he wants to. And by whatever the hell he wants to, I mean, of course, once he has the gas for it. And he also has that Spire already researching the +1 flyer attacks and actually going for that Mutalisk transition. So, going to be a very interesting play out of Valon. He's going to have a couple of infestors mixed into his army. We see just 2 right now. And the rest of his army is going to be taken up by Mutalisk, Roaches, and Zerglings. So, going for 2 tech plots, very interesting. Not really the most normal thing that we end up seeing, but we are going to have to see if Valon's going to be able to hold off against this aggression. And it looks like Bennay definitely wants to do. This is a very scary force. Even though Bennay is not maxed out, he has an insane number of Stalkers and so many Immortals. That's actually 5 Immortals. And even with a couple of Sentries mixed in, he's going to be able to get some great force fields going down. Valon's Roaches really not being nearly as effective as he wants to. Even getting some Blink Micro in there. The Mutalists just really not being worth their weight at this number. And just really having only a couple of Mutalists does not justify the cost of getting that Spire at this point in time. Those Mutalisks are not really effective in these big frontal engagements, especially not in those low of numbers. And Mutalisks definitely get better with higher numbers, but we do see, wow, a huge Zergling run by into the main. No wonder Bennay was able to eliminate Valon's force so easily, but it looks like Bennay actually going to be able to take this game and actually going to bring this to game number 3 with a 2-0 lead. Valon deciding after losing that big army in the center, does not feel like he can defend, and is just going to go ahead and GG out at this point. Even with the damage he did to the main, he does not feel like to be in a comfortable position to really be able to do enough damage, and that is going to bring us to game number 3. So let's go ahead and jump into that. I am so excited for game number 3, folks. Can Valon come back in this best of 5 series? He needs to win 3 games in a row at this point, or Bennay just needs to take 1 game. 1 game, that means he can do all kinds of different cheeses. He can go for this hugely greedy economic macro play, and you know what? He has the opportunity to take those risks. We're gonna have to wait and see. There's only one way to find out what these players are planning. I'll see you guys in game number 3. Here are the finals of the Late Night Quickie series number 2.